Welcome to the night section. What could have been, what could have been. Now, we've all had an artist whose career we've been following since the beginning. Maybe you went to their first show. Maybe you were following them on Instagram when they only had 200 followers. Or maybe you were among the first 100 people to listen to their first SoundCloud upload. Then a few years later, they finally hit their breakthrough with their XXL covers, interviews on Hot 97, their festival performances, charting on Billboard. It seems as though it is inevitable that they will become the next global superstar, the next Drake, the next Nicki Minaj, or even the next Beyonce. I mean, they have the talent, the vocals, the lyrics, and maybe even the live performance side of things. And then, however, they slowly start to fade into the abyss. I mean, they're still doing shows and releasing music, but we no longer hear about them in the mainstream. I mean, what could have gone wrong if they had such an upwards trajectory and they were literally breaking through into the mainstream? Then you start asking yourself if it could have been industry politics, label issues, or perhaps personal life events. What if I told you that it could be all of the above, but in addition to that, it could be an artist that just put their foot in their mouth? Like in the case of Azealia Banks.
Nicki's a whack. Nicki's a whack. She's a whack. And whatever blood nigga that she got with her, he can't make moves anyway. That nigga's a sex offender. Any move he makes, that nigga's going to jail for life.
Sidebar, I see you fat Lizzo. I see what you're trying to do. You stole Cupcake swag, and now you all out here talking about I'm a female rapper. You ain't no female rapper. You don't got enough sex appeal to be no female rapper. Don't let Craig Kalman gas you, Lizzo. You still a fat, boring. You still a fat, boring hipster rapper.
Rizza's a d***. Like, he's really a d***. Don't believe any of that fucking bang, nunchuck throwing shit he be talking about. That nigga's a fucking clown.
Now, we've all heard this about Azealia Banks, that she quote-unquote fumbled her own bag. To give you guys some context, Azealia Banks really started blowing up in the early 2010s after her release of 212 in 2011. She first released the song as a free download, then dropped the music video on YouTube. Now, of course, she was making and dropping music way before then, as she's dropped music and demos on MySpace before migrating to YouTube and SoundCloud, releasing songs like Later, which you guys can still find on YouTube today. But nothing had quite made the impact like 212. The music video went viral, and the song was listed by many music outlets as one of the biggest songs of the 2010s, even going platinum in the UK, selling 600,000 units. This song opened the door for her to the mainstream music industry and got her her first major deal with Interscope and Polydor Records in 2012. Before 212, however, she had originally signed a development deal with XL Recordings, but due to quote-unquote conflicting ideas, to put it nicely, she decided to leave and be on her way. It also wasn't too long until Azealia would no longer be signed to Interscope and Polydor Records. In a Hot 97 interview back in 2014, she says it was due to a combination of things, like the money spent working on her debut album, Broke with Expensive Taste, detailing that it cost about $2 million to make. And the label essentially started getting frustrated because they felt like there wasn't a top 40 record. And at the time, Azealia Banks was still finding her sound, so a lot of the money was spent and the label felt like they wouldn't be able to recoup. And of course, Azealia Banks is a creative. She doesn't necessarily want to make music for the sake of it being mainstream. I mean, if it does happen, great, but that wasn't the goal, so overall, it just wasn't a good fit. And so, in 2013, they parted ways. Now, this would be a common theme throughout Azealia Banks' career, where it seems as though her professional relationships just seem to go awry for a number of reasons. However, we can also conclude that she may also be a part of that reason. I mean, it takes two to tango, right? Major feuds. Since the beginning of Azealia Banks' career, she has gotten into online scuffles with other artists, and for the most part, if we're being honest, it seemed as though it would be initiated by herself. However, some were arguably warranted. Now, there's a long list of what we can consider beefs, but we will discuss 3 of the major ones that have really, in my opinion, shaped her reputation as someone who is either quote-unquote difficult to work with or just plain rude. Azealia Banks versus Iggy Azealia and T.I. The feud with Iggy Azealia started in 2012. At that time, they were both blowing up in their own right. As mentioned, Azealia Banks really started bubbling up with her single 212, while Iggy Azealia, on the other hand, also started coming up in the scene as she dropped singles like Pussy in 2011, then debut mixtape Ignorant Art, which led to her signing under T.I.'s label Grand Hustle. Now, the reason for this feud, or rather how this beef started, particularly with Iggy, has been highly debated. Some say that Azealia Banks was upset because Iggy jacked her name when Azealia Banks was already a quote-unquote thing, while others have speculated that this might have been a jealousy thing on Azealia Banks' part. However, it all started like most wars in contemporary society, and that is with a tweet. In September of 2011, Azealia Banks tweeted, quote, "Once wrote a song called Barbie-ish, but Nicki Minaj blew up like the week after, so I took it down, LOLs. I felt corny. Also wrote a song called Pussy before Iggy Azealia," end quote. And now, without directly tweeting at Azealia Banks, Iggy Azealia responded through a subtweet, quote, "It's never been about who did it first. It's always been about who did it better," end quote. And Azealia Banks responded by a quote tweet saying, quote, "I know, right? LMFAO, ha ha ha," end quote. And those were the seeds that were sowed in a feud that would persist for several years after that. And we really saw Azealia start to get more aggressive with her callouts when Iggy made the XXL Freshman cover in 2012. Now, for context, this was a huge deal at the time because Iggy Azealia was the first female rapper to ever grace the XXL Freshman cover. So understandably, we saw the frustration from Azealia Banks being a black female rapper, tweeting things such as, quote, "Iggy Azealia on the XXL Freshman list is all wrong," and, quote, "How can you endorse a white woman who called herself a runaway slave master," end quote. If you guys didn't know what Azealia Banks is referring to in that tweet, Iggy did call herself a runaway slave master in her 2011 song titled DRUGS, and we all know why that is wrong on multiple levels, which we won't get into today. Now, how does T.I. get involved in all of this is what you might be asking. As we established earlier on, Iggy was signed under T.I.'s label, Grand Hustle, and obviously he's going to go to bat for his artist. In regards to the whole XXL Freshman cover debacle, T.I. defended Iggy Azealia in an interview with DJ Drama back in March of 2012, and essentially had this to say.
And strategically, if she really cares about a freshman cover, maybe she could hope that, you know, she'll suck enough to get shelved, and then next year, when the freshman cover comes back around, maybe she'll still be a freshman.
Well, I think that pretty much sums that up.
Now, obviously, Azealia Banks was not too happy to hear that from T.I., and that's what really ignited the feud between them. And in later years, it would escalate to Azealia Banks calling out his wife Tiny after the release of T.I.'s No Mediocre featuring Iggy Azealia, tweeting that his wife has a METH face and saying she can't read. Obviously, T.I. wasn't going for it, so he responded in an Instagram post saying, quote, "You musty mouth, thought bot bad body, syphilis lipped, rectum vomit, unimportant, ugly monstrosity of a maggot, a bitch. If you speak ill of my family again, I will end you. Hashtag on Phil, hashtag on dough, hashtag no bullish. People fall downstairs daily. You better watch your step, you ugly, a gremlin baby," end quote. Very intense, but you guys get the point. Azealia Banks versus Cardi B. Now, I won't go through the entire rundown of the situation, but how this started was like most of Azealia Banks' feuds, and that's through a Twitter rant. This was back in 2017 when Bodak Yellow hit the #1 spot on Billboard, and this was huge because Cardi B became the first female hip-hop artist to hit the #1 spot on Billboard with no features since Lauryn Hill's Doo Wop in 1998. Everyone in the industry was singing Cardi B's praises, and I mean, of course, who wouldn't? She went from an exotic dancer to being a funny personality on Instagram to being a reality TV star to now becoming a global superstar. However, Azealia didn't see it that way, which was evident in tweets like this. Quote, "I'm sorry black industry men are too hyped for this Latina girl. I've never seen them jump like this for Remy or Nicki." And then she continues by saying, quote, "Spinning this for the culture story when they're simply letting white men at Atlantic buy them into hating their own women. Charlemagne and black men in hip hop should have gotten me, Remy and Nicki a #1 before they gave Cardi or Iggy one. but literally white guys buy black men away from black women and it's so cringe, end quote. It then escalated when the following day, Cardi B posted on her Twitter a video of Azealia Banks dancing at the club to Bodak Yellow. Now, in Azealia Banks' defense, she has admitted that she thought it was a great song. However, she didn't stop there. In response to Cardi's tweet, she posted several stories saying how she really felt, saying some crazy stuff, including calling her the poor man's Nicki Minaj.
Girl, we know the nigga from Harlem who wrote the song. The nigga's name is Poe. He's friends with your boyfriend from jail, and they all call you a smart and say your ass purple. I might get the nigga to write for me too. Kudos, Girl, everybody in the hood already said that you raps. Like, come on, you are the poor man's Nicki Minaj at this point. You know, like, I thought you were gonna do something bow, maybe some balcatron, maybe some reggaeton, something original, but you the poor man's Nicki Minaj. Like, what? Cardi, congrats on your #1, you know? Like, just like you said, like a bum bitch from the Bronx like you. It's great that you made it, you know? I'm sure it inspires a lot of other bum bitches, but like, you know, you for raps, you know? You for raps. You're they gassed you like you was that girl, but you're not that girl, you know? You're like a toy. You're like some little like smut that niggas wanna stick dick in. You're gonna have your moment now and then you're gonna be gone. Enjoy it.
Azealia Banks versus Rizza. You might have not heard about this feud, but Azealia Banks had a feud with Wu-Tang Clan's Rizza. Now, it all started fine and dandy with a movie they both worked on called Love Beats Rhymes that was released in 2017. Azealia Banks was the lead playing as Coco while Rizza was directing the film. The actual filming of the movie was apparently fine, because in an XXL interview back in 2017, Rizza had said, and this is not verbatim, that Azealia Banks was completely professional and came to do her job every day. Now, if that's the case, how can things go awry? Well, apparently this was due to a dinner party with Russell Crowe in the fall of 2016. Now, Rizza was invited to the private party at the Beverly Hills Hotel by Russell Crowe, with whom he had a working relationship, as they both starred in the film The Man with the Iron Fists, and Rizza had brought Azealia Banks as a +1. By that time, they had built a rapport with one another. It's also been confirmed by both Rizza and Azealia Banks that Rizza was helping her in getting mental health treatment, and Azealia had even previously claimed that she intended on signing with Rizza. So of course it made sense why Rizza would want to have Azealia tag along. Now the story is that Russell Crowe had spit on Azealia Banks, calling her the N-word with the hard R, then proceeded to kick her out of the party. Now, how it got to that point has been murky, because both Azealia and Rizza have told two different accounts of that night. Rizza had framed the situation in an interview with TMZ as Azealia Banks being the aggressor, mentioning that she was hurling insults all night, and at one point, Azealia had threatened one of the female attendees to cut or smash their face in with glass. Russell then allegedly proceeded to protect the attendee and dispel Azealia from the suite. And then, according to his account, he tried to get in between the two to defuse the situation. And that's where Russell Crowe allegedly spat at her. Rizza was very specific in saying the spit did not hit her. However, we can presume that it was in her direction, and that's pretty much the gist of it. On the other hand, Azealia went on a media tour to tell her side, and framed it as Russell Crowe being the aggressor. According to a TMZ article, quote, Azealia posted a different version of events, claiming Crowe called her the N-word, choked her, threw her out, and spit on her, end quote. All of the attendees giving statements to the police basically said that she was acting very erratic, essentially framing it as Azealia Banks being the aggressor. According to the TMZ article again, quote, according to eyewitness accounts, the trouble started when Azealia laughed out loud at Russell's music selection and then called him and at least one other guest, quote, boring white men. We're told a female guest jumped to Russell's defense and suggested Banks pipe down. Instead, we're told she made an insane speech/threat to Crowe and the woman, quote, you would love it if I broke my glass, stabbed you guys in the throat, and blood would squirt everywhere like some real Tarantino-ish, end quote. Then for good measure, witnesses say she dropped a few N-bombs, yet Crowe remained surprisingly calm, end quote. So obviously with this situation, no matter what really happened here, this would cause a falling out between the two. But the point here in showing these examples is to demonstrate that nothing really happens by accident, at least in terms of Azealia Banks' career trajectory. There's a reason why she's not as mainstream as she could have been. She's undeniably talented, actually knows how to rap, and is very entertaining, might I add. However, in the music industry, or realistically with any industry at the highest levels, your relationship with other people, your reputation, and even downright the perception that people have of you goes way farther than any talent that you might have. So in Azealia Banks' case, it's clear as day that she has burned too many bridges, and there's way more rifts that she has gotten into. I just broke down 3 of them. However, I will give her credit in one thing. A lot of the times, she's right. Criticism and the media. A lot of the criticism of Azealia Banks is the fact that she talks crazy, but a lot of the things that she says has some merit. The only thing, however, is that if you want to be big in this game, there's an unspoken rule that you can think it, but please don't say it out loud. People will not like you and think you're problematic, and you have the potential to be blackballed, like in the case of Azealia Banks. You have to play the game. But she's also right about another thing. A lot of the narratives and criticism surrounding Azealia can be attributed to the media.
They pay more attention to things that you say on social media than your music.
No, they pay more attention to the things you say.
Me?
You get what I mean? Yeah. Okay, so you've got 1 million listeners every morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And say I've got 10,000 followers on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, if I say something to those 10,000 people, you know, it kind of goes away. But when you guys latch onto it, the media latch onto it, and you guys blow it up, then it becomes a thing.
Yeah, that's when Shade Room Baller.
But is that my fault?
Now, I won't go into a whole spiel about media and how it shapes perception. There's college courses for it if you're that invested in understanding, but it's obvious, like Azealia alluded to in the audio, that things get bigger and very much amplified as well as distorted when the media, in Azealia Banks' words, latch onto things. So we have to ask ourselves, is Azealia Banks that terrible of a human being, or has the media pushed this narrative of Azealia Banks? We know that Azealia Banks can be abrasive and sometimes harsh, but is it she as an artist allowed to have her own opinion? Why do we take what she has to say so seriously? Does she even care to be PC and politically correct? And what do you think? Do you think her mouth might have ruined her career? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you guys so much for watching. Until the next video. Night section out.